ladies and germs.
We call it a triple pop.
Episode 78 of CMD Tower's Brews and Builds. I'm Mr. Common number 5, and my fellow host is the definition of heartless Hidetsugu.
Is he a demon? Is he a demon or a D-Veal?
Oh, God. Look at this.
Yeah. See, it's working.
No, that's how it's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so pretty.
For those playing the home game, Mr. Combo has been enjoying in the beverage brigade with me and Squee, and he just cracked a nitrous beer and poured it into a glass as I recommended he would, and now he has a beautiful mosaic of hops and barley going down. But hey, lords and ladies, speaking of beer, I'm sitting here in my Rock Creek Brewing hat with my brand new Rock Creek Brewing glass I just purchased today in this tulip, and enjoying a delicious Rock Creek Eager sanctioned porter in this desolate hellscape that we choose to live in called the Midwest. So that's exciting
for those playing the home game.
And I got another glass back there too. Mr. Combo, how you doing? What's going on? What's the word?
Oh, I'm doing all right. For some reason, work today was just non-stop.
Just kicked you right in the keister, huh?
Yeah, like literally worked from 7:30, 7:45 this morning till like 6, which I never do.
Whoa, I was gonna say that is like a record.
I was gonna say that's not all that abnormal for a normal person's workday.
Yeah, I know, but you know,
I'm on the some people do I don't know. Do you guys know the what's it called? It's like 89 deal where you have 80 hours to work over 2 weeks, but then you take the second Friday off. I don't know. It's something that some corporations do where you get every second Friday off. Like every payday you get off, and then the idea is you make up the work. So pretty much you just have to work like an extra hour a day, and then you have which is like what most people in corporate America do. But you're like, so instead of the 80, 90, 89, you're like the 25.
I would say most people in corporate America work 4 days a week at a normal rate and then just take the Friday anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, easily.
Well, usually Friday is just like wrapping up a few calls, but I mean, I think almost all my peers take off around like 2:00.
Yeah.
On Friday.
That's what it should be. And then back when I used to work in an office, like I would just I would leave it too and be like, hey guys, I'm gonna go work at home, and then just by work at home, I have my laptop open on my back patio while I'm like having a beer, and like I just see all these people just like sitting there looking miserable, like droning away, and I was like, I've been here for 6 months. Like you guys could have done this years ago, but you chose not to for your operations job.
You just log into Messenger, it shows a little green dot that you're available, and then you
like if something comes up, like there were times where I like was 2 beers deep and I got a message being like, oh, this just crashed, like we need you to go in and fix this now. I'm like, like dip, glass of water, like let's do this thing.
Jeez. But no, other than that, things have been going good. When this episode launches, I will be on a plane to Cabo. Pretty excited for that.
Margaritas.
Yeah, absolutely. If any of you guys are curious where I'm going, it's LeBlanc Cabo. It is absolutely beautiful resort, all inclusive. We have like butlers on each floor, and they have like this French fusion restaurant, and oh my gosh, they have like 9 different restaurants. I'm going with one of our good friends, Ali, and his wife, and
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just you and Joe. Cool.
And then one of their other pharmacy friends and his wife are also going. So yeah, it's going to be a fun little excursion. Funny thing though, you know, obviously you guys all know we're getting married. And so it's like, hey, cut down on magic spending, cut down on excess spending in general. So
let's go to Cabo.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to an all-inclusive resort in Cabo.
We got to go for free. So.
Oh, how did you figure that out?
I mean, it's part of my membership deal that I like paid for 5 years ago. Okay, you're right. I think I think this trip cost me $2,000 that I paid 5 years ago. So,
but you also did this. I think there's one time where I was over and I heard you taking someone to task on the Telefano. I think it was about this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was insane. Like I don't really hear Mr. Kakamo negotiating unless it's about 50 cents off of 100 cards I'm trying to buy from him. But I will say it was pretty good to see you out in the wild like that.
But so we said no Valentine's Day presents, just, save money. I think we're going to go get brunch, but that's it. But I was like, hey, let me surprise my fiance. I got all of these miles. Let me upgrade us to first class round trip. That'll be nice.
Oh, yeah.
So I did it. But then guess what? Because of COVID, first class, you get one bottle of water and one snack that is sealed. That's it.
Really?
Usually when you go first class, it's
no
like
drinks
bottomless
or anything on the
drinks. It's like a massive basket of food. Oh, it is just like the best experience ever. And so basically, I just spent all these miles for us to board a little early and to have a little comfier seat.
And the funniest part, when you board, like the board early is such a misnomer, right? Because you're just sitting there watching everyone else get on the plane behind you, right? Like it's not really a value.
I don't need to be on this plane right now. I could be out in the lobby with some more air.
I will say this. Normally it's great because on the flight home from Israel, which was like 14 hours or something, my dad upgraded me and there's this other guy on the team, Reggie, who was humongous, like dwarfed me, and he upgraded both of us. He had spare miles and was like kind of throwing this guy a break. But we were going there and like I can't sleep on planes very well, so we sat down and they're like, hey, can we bring you something to drink? And I said, yeah, like, do you have a beer? That'd be really nice, because I was pretty much sober throughout Israel, as you would. And then they're like, yeah, you can have as many, like, what would you like? And I was like, oh, does it cost anything? Like, no, you can have as many as you want. And I was like,
you're like, this
so
is
I have 14 hours to watch 6 movies and drink 9 beers and have meals every once in a while. It was wild, dude. But good, I'm glad. I was gonna say, I had a list of stuff that happened today. So like I've kind of been, for those who don't know, I kind of got some things up in the air right now with the move and like the car situation and like some other things. And today, I went and had my parents and they had their little moment of respite for me yesterday. And literally today, and I was kind of like waiting for all these things. And literally today, I think I found my apartment to move into in Charlotte. I confirmed that I'm getting the car next week. A gun that I'd forgotten about got confirmed that it works. It's just bad ammo. And I have I got moved on the new job opportunity working for the beer company for second round and last interview next week.
Nice.
What beer company? What is this?
So it's a new job potentially, and they are a beer distribution company out of Chicago. So they're family owned. So they're not a brewing, but it's still like beer adjacent. So on my interview, the guy said, so I noticed at the tail end of your interview, it says I always put like extracurriculars, right? And I have so many that like I've kind of chosen ones that I think can be like somewhat applicable. So I have like podcast and content creator at CMD Tower, mostly because if they ask and be like, well, I update the website, so I'm keeping my HTML still strong. And then I have BigTuck Brewing underneath it just to show that I have like passion outside of work. And the first question out of this guy's mouth, who luckily also was like a big bearded bald guy in Virginia, so I was like, this is gonna go good, which it did. He was like, so I see you brew your own beers. I already knew that he was gonna ask that. I was like, yeah, it's like a hobby, but like I think the industry is really interesting and like something to be really passionate about, so it was a very big, exciting Thursday for BigTuck, and I feel much more like, okay, these things are falling in.
I just don't understand how you keep getting job opportunities when you job hop more than probably a teenage kid picks his condom brand.
Now, I will say this. I was at a job for almost 2 years out of grad school, and then I went from I was a year in consulting. I've been 4 months in consulting, and as I made mention, I'm not sure if I wanted to be there for 2 years, I would have a job there for 2 years. So the idea here is if I can move internal
when they asked
someplace.
You in the interview, what did you say when they're like, where do you see yourself in 2 years?
They just asked.
Oh, I'm the
different company.
Yeah, somewhere else. I don't know. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife. Doing your son? No, I just told him that, where it's like, I kind of got promised the moon when I joined this company, and now my boss is out on sabbatical for potentially forever, and they've already laid off 3 other people on the practice. So it's kind of like, I would rather be proactive in my movement. So hopefully when I get a role internally, it'll be something that I can see a bit more of a future with. But
there you go.
That's all I got. And like I said, I'm loving this delicious Rock Creek swag.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut you off right there.
I'm gonna
Kanye West.
I'm gonna stop. Listen, I'm gonna stop you right there. Move right along.
Thanks for tuning into the episode, guys. And as always, with his Manolith commentary is Squee McGee from Chaos Records.
It's like me last week.
Oh yeah, I forgot about your squeak last week.
Yeah.
That was very surprising. I'm actually living up to my name this week. I am quite literally iced Squee. I have been, as a skinny person, so f***ing cold. I don't even know how to describe it. When we work at the warehouse, it was so cold today that the labels wouldn't stick to the bottles because the bottles were cold, and then once they got over to the line, they started condensing, so they were wet. Oh my god. It's really messing with me.
We had band practice last night in the basement. Usually down there, no matter when, maybe there's like 4 or 5 of us down there at the time, and usually it's like I'm just a bucket of sweat. Like I feel like I shouldn't even be wearing a shirt, and I don't even think I broke a bead yesterday. We were going at it, so I know it was shocking.
Amazing. It only has to be about 2.5 degrees for BigTuck not to sweat.
Yeah, facts.
Which,
love it.
Funny thing on that, I actually had to turn on my heat today.
Whoa!
I was so cold. I have like one of those smart thermostats. So I just say, keep the house between like 67 and 69 or 70 during the day. And then at night, it can get as low as 62 because, you're in a blanket and it's not a big deal. So my house was 67. I couldn't feel my toes. My fingers were numb and I couldn't stop shivering.
Wow.
That's how I feel down in the basement all the time.
Well, I know it's dire when, my rental property management company, the only message being like, you cannot have delinquent accounts, maintenance will not come if you call them, those sort of things, right? And they've sent out 2 messages in the last week saying, one of them was weird where it's like, hi, we've had reports of sanctioned or unsanctioned pets, which I know is directly directed at me because they still don't know that Mr. Bubbles is my roommate, about them being out in the cold. And they were like, you need to keep those damn pets indoors, which for me was like, is that their business? But whatever. And then the second one was, okay, here are some helpful tips to keep your pipes from freezing because maintenance already has a backlog. And it was like a page full of stuff. Oh my gosh. So I was like, good stuff. Great. Love to see it.
That's crazy.
I'm a big block of ice waiting to melt. That's all I got this week.
All right. Well, if you guys want to support CMD Tower and possibly help Squee with heaters in his basement and all the content we put out, you should head over to our sponsor, level1gameshop.com. They sell everything you need from a tabletop gaming perspective, playmats, dice, D&D, box games, the whole kit and caboodle. Go hook them up. They're the ones that hook you guys up with those monthly giveaways. Another way to support us, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have a new patron.
Woo! Yeah!
And they sent me a message on Patreon. They've been listening since, guess what episode, Tuck?
28.
2.
What?
Damn!
No way!
Episode 2.
Wow!
Well, they probably know more about the podcast than we do.
He's a badass because his name is Badass. Thank you so much, Cameron, the Tree Folk Lore.
Hell yeah, dude. Wow. Welcome aboard, Cameron. Thank you.
Yeah, Tree Folk Lore.
Wow, so it's true. It's true that people actually listen to this podcast because episodes through. Well, I listened to our episode 1, the Prosh one. Oh. How did we ever?
Okay, look, we were on training wheels at the time. That was our first go around. We were just figuring it out.
I just feel my mom calls it the Helen Keller method. Like when you're back in your car.
Oh my god!
You're back into
nothing had been established.
My mom, like when she's backing into a space because she doesn't drive very often, she just calls it the Helen Keller method. And she's like, if you bump into something, well, maybe you probably went too far. I'm just feeling it out. I'm just feeling it out.
Yeah, I mean, hell, that was so early on. That's back when we used to have Action 4 News and Brews and Builds as one.
Mm-hmm. Right?
That was pre-news,
yeah. Wow. I think, when did we start the news? On episode 5 of Brews and Builds was right around then? Yep.
I even remember talking to my fiance while we were driving somewhere, and I was kind of like telling her, like, me and Tuck really want these episodes to be shorter, but like there's other stuff that we find interesting. And she's like, why don't you just do 2 episodes? And I was like, wait a minute. And I think I texted Tuck, and I was like, hey, how about we break this stuff up? And he's like, that's genius.
That's genius. No more time boxing.
We didn't even have a name for it at episode 2 yet. It was just a concept.
Oh yeah.
just a concept. Well, part of being part of our patron community, like our new friend, the Tree Folk Lord, is you get a shout out on Brews and Builds. So no matter what pledge level, with the 4 different ones we have, from just $1 a month where you get the Discord, the shout out, and entered in for deck therapy, all the way up to $25 where you get a playmat, sleeves, coin, the gizmos, the gadgets, the wickets, the watches. You get it all. And you get additional entries into the monthly giveaways. Now, if you can't help out from a monthly perspective, but maybe you see on MTG Lexicon a really cool Mr. Common number 5 reminder token, maybe one of your people in your playgroup has the infamous squeeze coin. But,
there's going to be a lot of those out on the market. Keep your heads up.
You see it as a one-off. Well, we do have a store, cmdtower.com/merch. Just head in there, buy the stuff. Please buy the stuff. Please buy the stuff. Please buy the stuff. Pretty please. Or eventually all this is going to end up at a thrift store when I die at the age of 36. Got real dark. Wow. But hey, if you can't buy anything, you can't help out monthly, just share the content you're watching and listening to. Subscribe to us on YouTube and whatever podcast platform, because every little bit of interaction from the collective does help, and it does help us infect new collective members. And of course, big shout out to T-Coates at t.coates on Twitter. He is our video editor on YouTube. Please leave comments, leave a 5-star review. Let him know what we could do to improve the Brews and Builds videos to make them more fun to watch, more interactive, and something that eventually will get maybe 100 views, 200 views, an upgrade from 10. What? And hey, Pink Royal, thank you so much for the music in the beginning and the end. And hey, guys, stay tuned till the end so you guys can actually hear about the borderless cards that we're giving away from our sponsor, Level 1. Ooh. So Brews and Builds is our deck tech series. Since we conquered the path to 32, we've moved on to the endless themes that EDH can bring us. Each month will be a new theme, and we correlate how these decks are constructed similar to how a beer is brewed. So we broke it down into 4 different categories. The first one's rampant setting your board state. That's grain.
And grains are the foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, usually about a 60-40 ratio. These help with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of a beer, like the chocolate barley and this Eiger-sanctioned porter that gives it a little bit of a sweet finish. Decks always need ways to grow, stabilize, and rampant your bigger threats, and just like a grain profile, they're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
The next is, how does your board interact with all of your opponents? That's called hops.
And hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal floral flavors that grow in a variety of strands and help distinguish subcategories like IPAs. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can ultimately do what it wants.
And then, how does your deck actually win the game? That's yeast.
And yeast are living microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. It adds alcohol content in the carbonation. Without yeast, you'd be drinking flat sugar water, and without yeast cards, your deck wouldn't meet the goal of actually winning the game.
And then one of my favorite sections, not really. We have shenanigans. This can be pet cards, synergies, Ultra the Broods that are in the deck that are just kind of fun. We call that spice.
And not every beer has them, but spices and other additives help separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a jalapeno stout or normal stout into a jalapeno stout, or the addition of hops that turn an IPA into a double IPA. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, this is where we generally talk about it.
And then we have the capping. It's a bottle capping. These are going to be big tucks and eyes, cuts and adds to the deck that are going to be under $5, under $50, and a no budget recommendation. We just can't talk about mana only lands. So without further ado, let's get brewing. Woo. We're still on the Commander is everything to me. And we are now on BigTuck's Rakdos, Lord of Riots. Yeah. Filthy bad boy. You naughty boy.
He's my Lord of the large boys. Boys.
So, BigTuck, why don't you read off Rakdos' stats and then give us a little insight why you decided to build this kind of unique commander.
Yeah, so Rakdos, Lord of Riots, I've had this deck for a really long time. It's been added in here for 4 years. I think I had it a little bit before that because for about a year of playing, I didn't actually put things into tapped out. And actually, I might be migrating off because their software is starting to crap out. But Rakdos, Lords of Riots. Yeah, right? Okay, you saw it too, right? I'm not going crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so...
And it sucks. I even support them for like $1 a month on Patreon.
Bastards!
See, their $1 a month doesn't get me nothing. Yeah. But hey, if you guys give us $1 a month, you get shout outs, you get deck therapy, you get all the stuff.
Discord access,
so much better than tapped out.
100%. So Rakdos, Lord of Riots is a legendary creature, Diamond. You're not a Diamond, are you? It's a 6/6. It's a mythic, sitting around $2. It's got a pretty tough casting cost of 2 black, 2 red. It's a 6/6 flying trampler, and it comes with the stipulation that you cannot cast a spell unless an opponent lost life this turn, but it has a pretty significant upside of creature spells you cast cost 1 generic colorless, less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. I will point out that I was slightly upset that it wasn't errated to a diamond, because that cut out a fair amount of big Eldrazi's that I wish I could cast. Continuing great work there, Wizards, of introducing a 6-color type after 30 years of the game existing. So I am pretty confident that I made this, my Edric deck, and Ready all within like maybe a calendar month of each other. So I can't really remember as to why, but I'm pretty sure it lined up with MTG Goldfish's old $25 budget brews. And this is one that's always been, it kind of sits in the back. I like it a lot. I think it's really fun to play, especially a little bit later in the night when like you're a little toasted and not trying to think. And I think one thing that's been interesting is Mr. Combo and I have talked about, like, there are some decks that we have where we like meticulously tinker with them, right? Swapping in and out lands and cards and like really eyeballing, oh, this new card comes out and I want it so bad.
Yep.
And this has been one of my decks that really has kind of just been a little stagnant. I would say at least half, if not more, of the cards are in the original build. And I will say, even with that stipulation, it definitely was built more in my Battlecruiser years. But I mean, this deck can be completely brutal if it goes unchecked. And I think my last point before I pass it over will be, it was really interesting to do this back to Kalia, because I think we've kind of talked about how there are ways to accomplish the same goal, but do them like a little sweatier, la Mizzix versus Raza. And I was looking at this deck, and honestly, I saw a lot of parallels with Kalia. I think they kind of play a little bit the same, where they both are trying to cheat out bigger creatures early on. Yeah. And as we made mention of, really depend on the commander to grease the wheels on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the similarities here are both Kalia and Rakdos. The decks can function without the commander.
Right.
But it is extremely slow. Mm-hmm. You're playing one thing a turn, probably around turn 6 or 7, and that's it.
Yeah.
And when you can only get a threat on the board per turn, oh, cool, you got out this massive Eldrazi, murder.
Yep.
Oh, now I got nothing. So, and I have seen this deck do filthy things on turn 4 and 5. It's very gross. I don't like it at all, but it is cool because I can't think of another Rakdos color legend that does something like this.
Yeah.
To where either you're cheating the creatures or getting a massive mana discount for cards that would normally be unplayable. And I'm going to talk about some of these cards in this deck.
Oh, for sure.
But that is just the really unique thing with it. And I think I like about Rakdos is the same thing I like about Animar. You could build the decks disgusting.
Right.
Or you could just build it as whatever you want. And it's like, oh, just because it's a generic mana less, I'll do, I don't know, tribal dwarves.
Yeah.
Why not?
I completely...
You could kind of mix and match. Unlike Kalia, you have to do angels, demons, and or dragons. The world is your oyster.
I completely agree. And I think like even when I haven't looked on the EDH rec page on this in forever, and I was doing some research before the show, I think you could really see that, where there's like, you could build this sub-tribe demons, you could build this sub-tribe demon devils angels, right? You could build this like just as an Eldrazi build. And I do agree that I think it's fun to find some of these cards on the fringes that make a real impact here.
For sure. All right. From a color perspective, tip of the hat, no wag of the finger, because you are perfect on your pie.
I
can't believe that.
I made one card substitution yesterday that slightly tipped it, and I was somewhere else. I think I was at Rock Creek, shockingly, before the show, and I think I was there, and I was like, oh, I know it, and like wrote it down immediately, and adding in that Path of Ancestry, put it right back on the run there.
And your CMC 459.
Yeah, but it's like, again, very
is
similar.
It a real 459. Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing like Kalia, where it's like the real CMC of this is probably like 3/6, right? Like it's definitely slow. It's not 2, but if you can get your commander out, then like that negates a lot of it. And
for sure.
And shockingly, I think I built this for $100. And like I said, I've added a couple lands here and there, and it's like over 500 now. Which again it's fine, but it also makes me kind of upset because I just hate how expensive this game is.
Why do you keep building decks?
Point on that. I spent to rebuild Kaza and put almost the final touches on Hazazon. I only spent $50 to rebuild.
Wow.
To rebuild Chevelle, Kaza, and almost finish Hazazon. So
nice.
Yeah, and it was just like some very, very minute things there. So yeah.
Also, by the way, before you move, you have to play your Hazazon deck.
Just
like the actual finished one, not that BS version that you had that you played back in like September.
No comment.
All right. Well, with that no comment, we're going to get on to this deck tech. Start with the grain and the ramp section. BigTuck being your deck, I'd like you to kick it off. What's the first one you want to talk about?
Well, we're just going to go right into it. Sorry. This is probably the more rare, better Manolith out there, in my opinion. Mostly because you really need, in the early game, you really need cards that are going to deal a point of damage. Because if you can't get that damage in, Rakdos is definitely sitting there. And I had a build of this deck that was much faster, where I ran a lot more of these pingers, if you will. But then you just get board wiped and you're back to the basics. So this deck plays a little slower now. But Cryptolith Fragments is a real all-star in this deck. So 3 colors for an artifact. It's an uncommon from Eldritch Moon. It does enter the battlefield tapped, but again, playing this more like a tempo deck, that doesn't matter as much. You can tap it, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Each player loses a life. So again, Manolith, but better. And I've never seen this happen before because I probably forgot. But if at the beginning of your upkeep, if each player has less than 10 or less life, transform it, and it transforms into Aurora of Emercul. An Eldrazi Reflection. It's a 1/4 flying death touch. When it attacks, each opponent loses 3 life.
Yeah, I know. Get ready for your paragraph.
Time to zoom in. I felt compelled to take the twisted stone, and I abandoned my horse's burden to accommodate its weight. Now it continued glow illuminates my home and warms my mind. That makes no sense. Garner Croft, Moorland Farmer. So again, like, you're playing Rakdos, so you need as many mana rocks as you can. I'm probably kind of on the lower end of it, but I really want my mana rocks to be able to do something, whether it's draw a card, because a lot of times you just run them out, deal damage, be able to turn into a creature, that sort of thing. And I feel like the floor on Cryptolith Right coming in tapped is made up by its ceiling of just being able to get Rakdos out the next turn pretty much every time.
So I wanted to ask you a question, but I realize it's a really silly, stupid question now that I think about it, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Has this ever backfired?
Would you rather this stay Cryptolith Fragment the entire game, or are you cool with it flipping into Aura of Emercul if you're able to have everyone below 10? That also means you're below 10 as well.
Yeah, and like I think this... So... It's not that dumb of a question, to be honest, or at least I'm missing it. Like, I would wager to guess...
Because if you're at 10 or less, he swings, or it swings, you're taking everyone's life total down by 30%.
Right, yeah. That's a great point. So I was going to say, like, I would wager to guess if it's at that stage of the game, even though this deck can kind of function like a Bomberman deck, just because it's so fast and people figure that out, which we'll get into later. I would probably want it to flip if it got down to it.
All right, so let's go to my first one.
Yeah.
I like this card. I wish I could play it in my Neheb deck, but one of its abilities has to deal with multicolored spells. You get to untap it. I'm talking about Lobber Crew. Very cool card. 2 colorless red, creature, goblin, warrior, defender. It deals 1 damage to each opponent when you tap it, and then when you cast a multicolored card, or multicolored spell, untap Lobber Crew. It's easy to just aim at everything. So I like this because you don't run a ton of multicolored spells, to be honest, but you do have some. Mm-hmm. And so being able to, I'm going to tap it. That's 3 damage. multicolored spell, do it again. That's 6 damage.
Right.
That could cast a lot of Eldrazi's for free. That could cast a lot of different things for a severely reduced mana cost.
Exactly.
And I think this is one of those cards that if you had kind of like that god hand with Rakdos on the board, you could tap it, do the 3, cast something for 3 or less for basically free. It untaps. Do it again, cast something for 6, do it again, 9, do it again, 12. If you have enough multicolored stuff in your hand, you can build up to kind of go from almost your Birds of Paradise to your Vorinclex.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like, I think the big point on this card that I think, like when I was building it younger, I put in lower CMC pingers, right? Mm-hmm. Problem being is I would rather pay 3 to deal 1 damage to each opponent than pay 1 to only deal to 1 target, right? And Lava Crew and some of the other ones really enable that stuff, help you control the tempo, all that sort of thing. And like you said, the nut draw, being able to like play Lava Crew, deal the damage, cast Rakdos, then be able to play something else. That's really where we're trying to go. Again, as we haven't talked about in a while, that is in fact Magical Christmas Land.
Yeah, that is definitely Magical Christmas Land. So, Tuck, I'm just curious, off the top of my head, because I don't think I saw it in your deck. Nope. Wouldn't Thermo Alchemist just be better than this?
Yeah.
Costs 1 less, still does the 1 damage to each person. It's 1 toughness less, so it's 0-3 instead of 0-4, and then it untaps when you cast an instant or sorcery.
So the reason I would have to do, because it's been on the that exact cut has been on the block a lot, but I think I did the math earlier, and I think I have. When I made the decision to keep Lava Crew in, I had more multicolored spells than I do instants and sorceries. So I was kind of playing the angles there, but I think the haste might play into it as well, because I only have 15 sorceries and instants. Well, okay. So yeah, it's a great point, and it's one that I probably need to look into a little bit more.
Yeah, because right now I'm going through your deck. You actually only have, counting your commander, 4 multicolored spells in the entire deck.
Oh, wow. No way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, luckily I have 16 Thermal Alchemists lying around.
Sorry. You have 5.
Oh, blasted. For those playing the home game, when you look at this deck list, Lava Crew out, Thermal Alchemist in. Look at the cut sections.
All right, Tuck. What's your second grain?
So there becomes a point of the game, and this was my experience where I had all these like pingers and they don't do anything else, right? So I had this card mostly in there as a way to get a lot of value out of them. But this legendary Naga is going to work in this deck, is an all-star, especially when you get to cast it for 2. So Sidisi Undead Vizier is probably one of my favorite tutors, is not my favorite of all time. So 3 colorless, double black for 4/6 Death Touch. Need to put in my Death Touch deck. Thank you. Legendary creature Zombie Naga. It has exploit, so when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. When it exploits a creature, which it can do itself, you may search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So in reality, this is just a 4/6 Death Touch that's cost the same as a Demonic Tutor in this deck. And again, like, it's probably I just haven't played this deck that much recently, and when last time I played it, it was just all colorless creatures, so that was enough. But I think that being able to have some of these other creatures that are just kind of utility, just to bin and then go get whatever else you want, and especially if you have one of those big plays where you have enough floating mana from Rakdos where you can sack them, go get one of your big beaters, and then bring it out that same turn, is really where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sidisi's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I love this card. And I don't know about this deck. I mean, you have a little bit of stuff you could do with your graveyard, but it's more just returning. It's not really like value graveyard.
Bringing it back.
Which, you know, I think Sidisi does a little bit better in the value graveyard decks.
Yeah.
Marin, Carador, Shirai, probably Aromi, stuff like that. Right. Oh, God. Could you imagine this in an Arami deck? Encore it out, you get 3 of them.
Oh, God.
But great card. I do like it for here because I do think this is the kind of deck that you do need to be able to sculpt your hand at times.
Yes, right.
Because the one thing you don't want is you don't want a bunch of life loss from your opponents with Rakdos, and you're like, I could cast Lobber Crew.
Yeah,
and
great.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. And I do think that there are times where the value of Rakdos is one that you will run out of stuff in your hand.
Yeah,
that's just the way it works.
100%.
It's kind of like the same thing that I brought up to Frenemy Dan when we did his deck therapy on his, Nayami, maybe? Nayami, something like that. His Dimir play stuff on other people's turns. It's like, eventually you're going to kind of run low on cards, and like, what are you going to do at that point? And so Sidisi's great. I know you're anti-tutor, but I know this is a little slimy of a tutor, so you like it.
And I remember also that there was a time where this was like $4, and me and all the crude Optiver went and bought like 5 apiece. So they're still floating around on
Good for you, because now it's $8.64.
Bets.
All right. My next one is actually a land.
Ooh.
But it's great.
I put a couple in there. Because I knew you couldn't help yourself. So
yeah. So we're talking about Piranha Marsh.
Oh yeah.
It enters the battlefield tapped. It taps for a black. When it ETBs, target player loses a life. It's just one of those things to where, hey, I want to cast Rakdos on curve. Piranha Marsh, drain ya. Play Rakdos, because like you said, you got to have those mana rocks in here, and you do have a lot of the I think you have all of the Rakdos mana rocks now that I think about it. So ideally, with the amount of mana rocks you have, you'll have one of them out turn 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
Then turn 4, Piranha Marsh, you lost your life. Rakdos is out. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, I think I kind of realized where I think at some point I had like 38 mana or maybe 40 mana in this deck because I was just worried because it's Rakdos, right? And then I realized all those 1-drops that just ping for 1 or sack and burn someone for 1, like I can replace those with lands, cut my lands down, and then have other utility out there. And again, like the only thing that sucks is like Piranha Marsh gets in that Bajuka Bog realm where if you have to use it, turn 1, and you're like, I either need to mulligan and take a risk, or I know I can play this and just have to eat it. But again, there's other things in here that can do that 1 damage. So again, to your point, does piles of work in here, and even taps for color.
Right. Yep, there you go. Tuck. Ooh, you know what? You could probably use an Amulet of Vigor. What's your last grain card?
I actually have a spare from that.
There you go.
No, how dare you? Okay. I've always been a huge stand for this card. And literally, this was the biggest. I just changed this in this deck earlier today because I realized I had a spare one lying around. A lot of people would call it a worse Phyrexian Arena. And I feel like mostly you're wrong because it's definitely a greasy card. But in here, I think it goes from greasy to slimy. We are talking about your old pal, run it back, Mr. Combo, Theater of Horrors!
Oh, God.
Colorless blue, black-red for an enchantment. It's a rare. About 26 cents, so really breaking the bank here. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, you may play cards exiled with Theater of Horrors. All well and good, but the big difference here is 3 colorless and a red. Theater of Horrors deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Now, that is an overcosted ability. I will agree with that. It's a little much, right, to deal the damage, but sometimes that's all you need, especially later game. And then the tech that I realized with this was I feel that a card in your hand is more vulnerable than a card exiled with this enchantment.
Why? Because someone could just enchantment remove it.
Right.
And I would say there's more enchantment removal than discarding cards.
There's some part of that, right, which I can kind of see, and but I do feel like people are starting to play more wheel effects, more mass ditch draw sort of things, which kind of counteracts the thing earlier. But I like the fact that which we'll get into later. I do like the fact that this is just another thing to help draw a card, keep it out there, and especially if you hit an Eldrazi or some other big thing, it's just waiting in the wings to be cast later. So again, I do now, Mr. Combo, I know what you're gonna say, and I already had a copy of Phyrexian Arena in this deck. So now this is just another draw spell, baby. Let's go.
I guess. If you ever have to pay 4 to deal 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker, so you can play Rakdos, you are in a world of hurt.
Oh, I agree, but I'm telling you, there's been times before where I'm like, Like anything at all, like stack stuff. How do I assemble this Rube Goldberg machine?
You're like, can I prick my finger for the 1 point advantage? Can I give my own blood?
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, I just put it in, so we'll see how it goes. But there's that.
All right. Well, my last one has probably the funkiest art I've ever seen. The illustrator, his name is just Chippy, which is fantastic. We're talking about Plague Spitter.
Oh, yeah, this one's weird.
2 colorless black, creature horror. It's a 2/2. And that's an uncommon from Onslaught?
Yes, sir. No. That one's Invasion.
Invasion.
Very close, though.
At the beginning of your upkeep, Plague Spitter deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. So it's kind of like a pestilence on a creature to an extent. And when it's put into the graveyard from play, it also deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. So I love this card. It does exactly what you want. It's going to get you that consistent ability to be able to cast Rakdos and have a 3-cost reduction on your creatures if Rakdos is already on the field. And then secondly, it's kind of a cool little tech thing to where you could actually have this cast a DC, sack this, it deals some damage to everyone, you tutor what you want, cast Rakdos, and then possibly cheat out whatever you need because everyone just lost a life. So it's very, very cool. I really like it. And I think the thing that your deck is going to suffer from is people that are going very wide. This is a way that you eliminate 1/1 token decks. It's just gone.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And this and some other effects later, if someone's going insane with an elf deck or merfolks or something like that, just playing this on turn 3 is going to put them back 3 turns easy off cast.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, heck, it even puts off people that use the cheap, just like mana dorks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Like this could do work in. I mean, there are better cards for the format, so I don't want people to jump down my throat. But this ability does work in CEDH because a lot of people use, instead of lands, they run Birds of Paradise, Llanowar Elves, all that kind of stuff, Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Yeah.
And this just eliminates their entire boards before they can even tap the things for mana.
And even cards even cards like the Mirrors that some people use as like creature replacement for Emercul, they're all 1/1s too, just like you said.
Yep. There we go. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up the grain and ramp section. Now we're going to head over to the board state, opponents, and hot profile. I will start this off with a Planeswalker.
Yeah, I knew it! I knew it, baby! I think there's only one, isn't there?
Nope, there's 2.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. It has black in its CMC, which they both do. It costs 5. Which they both do. They're both mythics. And it comes in with 3 loyalty.
Nice.
3, 2.
It's not me.
Oh.
I got the other one.
Yeah, I think I'm cutting that other one.
How dare you?
So this is 3 colorless, black. Planeswalker, Nixilus. That's ridiculous.
Very
What'd you name your kid? Nixilus. It has 3 abilities. +2, each opponent loses 1 life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. I actually think this is a better grain card than a hops card. I'm not too sure what the hops thing is about, but I'm assuming it's for its -2. Put a 5/5 black demon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. You lose 2 life. I'm assuming it's because you need blockers. It's a easy way to get a 5/5 blocker out there. And then the emblem that you'll probably never get. You get an emblem with pay a colorless and a black, sack a creature, you gain X life, draw X cards, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. It's basically Disciple of Bolas on a stick is an essence of what that is. So I like the card. I disagree with it being primarily a hops card. I do think this is a modal card, but I think its +2 is going to be better for you because that allows you to cast your commander. And like you and I were talking about offline, you need ways to kind of incrementally gain life. And this is a way that you can do that. Yeah,
I agree 100% with all that. And I do think that there are times where especially once people figure this out, a lot of this deck is just buying time. You're just buying time to get to the next draw, to get to the next combat, to get to the next whatever the case may be. And so Ob Nixilis both enables, why I put him in the hops is like he both enables your strategy but also can protect your board a little bit, because 5 mana for a 5/5 demon, being able to do that effectively every other turn does start adding up, both in like thinking about how people attack you and where the threats lie. So that's where I kind of put it. That's why I put it in hops for me personally. So
well, it's also kind of like that example you just gave is perfect, because it's the same thing that we used to justify Freyleys. +2, make a mana dork, -2, destroy artifact enchantment. And it's like every other turn, look at it either way. It's either every other turn you're getting a demon, or every other turn you are able to either cash your commander or get a 3 reduction and gain 3 life. And that's just amazing for 5 mana.
Agreed. Yeah, he's an all-star.
And the interesting thing is I would say that this is probably going to stick around on the board, because I'm going to make the assumption that when people play you in this deck, they're trying to kill you as quick as possible, not so much like, oh, I'm going to tick down your planeswalker.
Yeah, especially where it's like, I think people, when they see this, they understand what's going on. I'm on a +2, -2, +2, -2, +2, -2. Like, great. It's going to be a 3 through the entire time it's here.
Yep. All right, Tuck, what's your first hop?
So I am going to talk about the other planeswalker that I love, and I believe we probably had this carbon copy discussion in my Angie deck, but I am a huge fan, I don't care what anyone says, of Angrath the Flame Chain. 3 colorless, a black and a red for a mythic legendary planeswalker Angrath, of which there are 2 printed, and there will probably only be 2 printed throughout the entirety course of Magic. Comes in with 4 loyalty. It's about $7. +1, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. -3, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it. It gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step if it has converted mana cost 3 or less. -8, each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard. So,
how is this a hops? Once again, this is a great.
This is it,
but discard cards and lose 2 life?
Because it's a 6-for-1 when you look at it, right? Because you're getting 3 cards and losing 6 life. So it's destroying their hands, right? And again, that's what's going to be hurting me the most. The cards that they have in their hand, whether it's lands, whether it's mana rocks or anything like that. I run the hops in here is somewhat misleading in my opinion, because I don't really run a lot of interaction with this deck. I maybe have 1 board wipe. I maybe have a couple of reanimation spells. I maybe have a couple of other spells to get rid of things. And
that's okay. Yeah. You don't need a massive hop section. Stay true to your modal cards. Angrath and Ob Nixilis or Grains, you dirty son of a bitch.
So the -3, I do have some sacrifice rolls in here, right? I do have some on death triggers, so that helps gaining control of it. And sometimes just taking away something that's preventing me from hitting somebody also is huge. The -8 would be incredible. I don't think I've ever seen this card get above a 5, maybe a 6, and then the game's over. But again, I know in reality, now that we're talking about this one, I probably should have put in Spice, because it's a card that I know can be easily replaced in this deck. But I just have look at this guy. He's like me he's me with the hammer and chains at the wheel of a ship.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is I think the card's fine. I am cutting it.
Sure.
But I'm not like BigTuck, ladies and germs. I will actually tell you pros and cons about it, instead of just being like, oh, I'm going to cut it. I don't want to talk about it no more. Suck my tard.
Suck my tard.
Well, let's say
the reason I can't put it into Spice, because it's +1 and it's a plus. If it's a minus that did that effect, I would agree. I think that would be more of probably a Spice.
Okay.
You're not going to get to do it as often.
Sure.
But since it's a plus, it's always going up. And literally, I mean, this is a mana rock for you.
Right. That's
6
fair.
reduction and the 3 card. But I think, I guess if I had to do this, Tuck, pick 1 ability. Each opponent discards a card, or each opponent loses 2 life. Which one are you going to pick?
Oh, in this one, it's lose 2 life in a heartbeat.
There we go. And that's why I think it's a grain over a hops. I think the hops effect is just incidental. But if this thing just said +1, each opponent discards a card, you may run it in your Angie deck, but you wouldn't run it in this. But the lose 2 life is massive. Because you literally think of it this way. You paid 5 to get 6.
I will. So, okay. The only thing I'll say, I agree with that. And I think where I still like this is there are other cards, one of which I'll be cutting later, that cost 5 that also cause my opponents to lose 2 life. And that's it.
Yeah.
right? So for me, the fact that they also are losing something else, and it's repeatable, and I have other options if I have to steal their best creature or whatever.
I think that the discard and the gain control, that's just the gravy.
Yes.
But without it, you still have Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah.
I'd still eat this turkey, but it's a little bit better.
Right. It's a little dry, but I'm still gonna put it on a sandwich. Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Yeah. That's a completely fair assessment.
All right. So my next one, I actually had to change, is me and Tuck, as you could tell, we were conversing before we recorded, and I completely disagreed with how he had his hops section. So he moved one of the cards out that initially he did have in there, thank God. So I had to pick another one on the scramble. And on the scramble...
You're Pat Mahomes back there. What are you? Yeah, you could just do Angrath, because, I mean, we both just talked about the pros and cons of it.
No, that's a crap card. I will not put my name on garbage. So we're talking about a card that has a very cool effect. We did an MTG Action 4 News, gosh, it seems like maybe 2-3 months ago, where we talked about mechanics that we hope to see in 2021.
Oh.
And Morbid was one of the mechanics that I was like, I'd really like to see this come back, and possibly the Dungeons and Dragons, the Innistrad Werewolves Vampires.
Yeah.
So Tragic Slip, I think, is criminally underplayed. For a single black, it's an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. But it has Morbid. That creature gets -13/13 until end of turn instead if a creature died this turn. Linger on death's doors and risk being invited in.
It's good.
So yeah,
it's really good.
I really like this because, and you could disagree with me, but I think it's right there. If Swords to Plowshare and Path to Exile are number one for 1 mana target removal spells, I think Tragic Slip is 1A. Because the -13 can also get rid of Indestructible. Yeah. That is humongous. And Tuck, you talked about earlier, there's more wheel effects. I think there's more sacrifice stuff going on now. Like what we talked about earlier in the week with Day 2 and his Slurk Tevish Zot deck. It's like, you just sacked a creature because you're doing your little rigmarole? Well, how about a black and I'll just -13 the thing that's enabling you to do this?
Yeah, I agree. And like I've had a really interesting experience with Tragic Slip where I used to run it in every deck. And then as things kind of got slower, I kind of took it out. But I think to your point, now that we are seeing a lot more sacrifice, like, I mean, there's what's that new god where it's like whenever something's sacrificed or destroyed, they gain control of it. That deck's gonna be like the god of that card's gonna be everywhere. It's gonna be like the Kardashians of Magic. Just you can't get away from them.
Oh god.
But I think especially to your point, I agree. Where if you are running the right deck, this is just as good in black, right? And in this deck, getting in the red zone, having board wipes, having stuff like the Plague Spitter that's going to be dealing damage over and over and over again. There's going to be a lot of death, and having something that's just non-conditional, wipe something out. I mean, it gets Eldrazi's Darksteel Colossi, if you will. Just an all-star card in this deck.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, Tuck. Is there a single creature on its own that's more than 13 toughness? And 13, there is for toughness, but 13 power, I guess I should say.
The only one that comes to mind is Draco, which is 16, but people only run that in Yuriko as a meme card, so that's not a real that's not a real litmus test.
Yeah, because I was about to say, because there is that 0-17 crab.
Oh, yeah. Sex you like a crab. Oh, you think you got me, huh? With Tragic Slip? Well, I'm going to sex you like a crab.
All right, Tuck. What is your next hops that I'm going to disagree that's a hops?
This one I think you're on board with. Well, actually, I don't think you are. This is another modal one. The problem is I'm getting real sloppy with my modal cards. But we have both kind of agreed that this card's kind of a pile of trash in most decks. And I think we are right mostly. But in this deck, I can confirm that it works.
I'm cutting it.
You're cutting this one
I already know what you're talking about.
We're talking about Grave Upheaval.
Oh, never mind.
What?
Never mind. I thought you were talking about the Primordial.
Oh, we'll get into that later. I like Grave Upheaval. I have turned a new page on that one, dude. We'll talk about that later. You're gonna be really excited. So Grave Upheaval is 4 colorless. It's a black and a red. It's a sorcery. It's an uncommon, about 82 cents. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. Basic land cycling 2. 2, discard this card. Search your library for a basic land card. Reveal it, put it in your hand. Shuffle your library. So I think that a lot of Rakdos decks run this because it has a very high... They feel like it has a very high ceiling, right? Any creature for 6, and then you cycle it. But I think to your point that we were going to talk about in the cutting section, it's becoming more and more apparent that your graveyard, if you're running a deck that wants this, is going to be the primary target and the one that you can make it most consistently, right? Rakdos, people are going to die. Rakdos is going to die. Emercul is going to die. Spoiler alert, like this deck, unless people, it pretty much goes one or two ways, where it's like you come out screaming, everyone loses. You come out screaming, then rebuild, or you come out screaming or mid range, and then you're just slogging through. So you're going to have so many things dying that it's good just to have something where it's like, you know what? I have this monster grip in the opener. I just need one more land. I can cycle it away turn 2 or turn 1 if you get lucky with the Soul Ring or whatever. Or later you open it and you're like, okay, I think I can see how this game is going to go. And I know for 6 mana late game, one of these spells I can cast from my graveyard is going to completely alter the reality of the game we're playing. So I'm lukewarm on the card generally, but I think in this deck, in my experience of it, it's been a backbreaking, game-winning card at 6.
So I do think whenever you run these pull from a graveyard effect, you need to make sure that your stuff has value to pull out.
Yes, I completely agree.
I am white hot on this card because of the basic land cycling and the fact that it's in a graveyard. I mean, you're playing a very go tall deck.
Right.
Which means that people are going to be shoving creatures or big creatures in front of your stuff to try to kill them so they also don't die.
Right.
And so I think you're going to have a lot of opportunity to get very, very powerful creatures from your opponents. Just, that kind of late game action, turn 11, 12, 13. You know what? Let me grave upheaval and Duff. You got like 30 creatures in your graveyard. Let me take a look at that.
Let's take a peek.
Let's see what's valuable in there. And you could probably find something really, really, really powerful and strong. Or hell, if you were playing against my Joda deck, you're going to have piles of choices.
Right.
So this is better than the Primordial, which I also
I'm going to cut too.
Because of the fact you get the flexibility to either pick your graveyard or anyone's graveyard.
If someone came out screaming earlier and then they get board wiped, and I'm like, I'm on turn 6 and still haven't cast Rakdos, but I'm still in this game, right? Yeah, totally agree.
All right. My last hops. I had to do it. I'm talking about it. You're going to be angry.
Oh, I don't have to pretend.
Videlkin Ori.
In a deck that it actually belongs in because it doesn't run blue, if you can imagine that.
Videlkin Ori.
Oh, it's real good.
It's real filthy in here, and we're going to kind of get to why.
Yeah.
So 4 colorless artifact. You may play non-land cards as though they had flash. It is $30. I wish I could do a Josh Lee Kwai voice, but I don't know how to speak.
No, it sounds like this. It's like
oh god. The model incorporated the 5th sun effortlessly as if it had always known. So the reason I actually like it in this deck is your commander doesn't state on your turn, which is humongous. And people are gonna swing. People have to attack, or you got to make people lose life. You could be in a pod, like even a couple nights ago when we were on Bever's stream, and Sir Brian swings in for that massive amount of damage with like double strike and all of that. Right. You could be like, oh, he just killed Mr. Combo. Mr. Combo, how much life did you just lose? 28. Let me pay 2 red, 2 black, cast my commander, and then if you got a grip full of colorless, play it all for free. And there's nothing they can do to stop you.
Yeah, I agree. So normally I am not a Videlkin Ori stan, mostly because I watch adult programming when it comes to people playing Magic on the interwebs. But this was one, I think Scooty Shuffles, good friend of mine, friend of the show, here we go. He cracked piles of conspiracy and didn't like it, and he just gave me a box of cards of conspiracy stuff. And I'm pretty sure this was. Wow. I'm pretty sure this was in there.
Oh, so you're saying you've never paid for a Videlkin Ori?
Chris Cook, if you're listening to the podcast, please turn it off. No, this one was given to me, and then I borrowed it from my old boss, and he never asked for it back. and it was a foil 5th Dawn printing.
Oh, I was about to say, isn't that the boss that just gave you piles of money to build him a deck?
He didn't give me piles of money. He just gave me piles of old cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the card.
Yeah.
Obviously, Velocnori has lots of use, but I think in this deck, because it doesn't state during your turn on Rakdos, you could do some tricksy things with it. Because, I mean, you may have propagandas in front of you, or I don't have a profitable way to get through the red zone right now to be able to maximize what I have in my hand. You can kind of do what we talked about earlier in the week, the art of the Deville, and encourage other people to go attack each other, reduce the life totals down, and whammo, let me just dump my hand.
Okay. Totally agree.
Tuck, last card.
All right.
Speak.
This is a contested one, but we're ready to crack that whip. Because we were talking about our old pal, Whip of Erebos. I still stand by a hops card. So
it's not a hops card.
Whip of Erebos, 2 colors, 2 black for legendary artifact enchant. I didn't even put this before we had the conversation. And I was like, did I put that on there? And I forgot. Legendary enchantment artifact. It's a rare from Original Theros. Creatures you control have lifelink. 2 colorless, 2 black. Tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. It would leave the battlefield, exile instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate this ability only time you can cast a sorcery. So, the way you brought this up yourself, the way that people interact with this deck is by smashing me in and or around the face. And sometimes in the mouth. So,
well, that's only because you ask for it.
Totally, right? It's totally consensual, and we're there. But the way that I interact back is by staying alive. And to wit, this is the only card I have in the entirety of deck that gives my creatures lifelink. And that has been so critical in the way that not only that the board interacts with me and my life totals, but also the way that I can interact back. It makes me live longer, makes me like a weird threat where it's like, well, he's just going to get the life back, so why swing in for 5? Which is a conversation we've had on this very show not too long ago. The second part of it, and I will admit that this is kind of a modal card, and I'm starting to think that these modal cards still fit here, because the second ability of returning a creature back can also be a hop, because I can go get a back-breaking creature to bring out for that turn to either swing in for the win, to either be able to tutor up what else I'm looking for, to be able to
interesting. That kind of sounds like a yeast.
To be able to react to the board, right? But this card doesn't win me the game on the spot, nor does it really catapult me forward. And to me, that's why I think it's a hop.
So, does your life total go up or down when this card's on the battlefield?
Usually neutral, until people figure out that they're fighting a losing battle, and then it starts slowly creeping up.
Okay, so that does sound like you do gain ground and don't lose ground. So that sounds like a green. And then the last ability has to do with the sorcery speeds. You can't even do tricksy blocks. Can't really interact with your opponents that way on combat. And then you even just said, literally verbatim, oh, well, late game, I could do it and go get a back-breaking creature to possibly, get in for the win or kill someone. That sounds like a yeast. None of that sounds like a hops, you dirty son of a bitch.
That's why it's in the middle, because it interacts and deals with the board and the state of the game.
Okay, question.
Yes.
Would you put... Squee, help me out here. You run this one left, right, and center. That white card, that whenever creatures enter the battlefield, you gain a life.
Sword?
Sutor Priest?
Oh, I mean, maybe. I was thinking it was like a gal.
Oh,
yeah, Soul Warden.
Soul Warden, you're right.
Soul Warden.
Yep.
Okay, Soul Warden. Would that be a grain or a hops, Tuck?
I think it depends on the deck that you're running it in.
I don't. If you're gaining, that's like saying if you draw cards, well, it's technically a hops because, the more cards you have in hand, the more you can interact with your
It could be. It's all subjective. not all decks and colors are made the same way.
Abilities are card draw, ramp, lifelink. That's all advancing your board. Oh, I'm so frustrated. I almost want to cut this card at a spot.
I'm surprised you didn't.
We're moving on from the hops, guys.
Yeah.
I'm this close. Let's get to winning the game in yeast, which is, in theory, where Whipper Erebos could live. So, Tuck, why don't you start us off, though? What is your first game-winning card?
So, there's a card we talked about last week where it's like a dragon that you play it and then bring your commander out, and it's kind of like acts as a second copy of your commander. So, in the right frame of mind, this orc pirate ? Wizard, also triple ? Does kind of the same approximation. So our old pal on 3, 2, 1, Direfleet Ravager.
Three colorless black creature or pirate wizard mythic.
It's a mythic. Menace touch. Menace touch.
Menace touch.
Touch you. Like the Midas touch. Menace death touch. When Direfleet Ravager enters the battlefield, each player loses a third of his or her life rounded up. His fists fume with the decay of death. Each strike be a plague on the hearts of his enemies. Yeah, like as soon as this got spoiled, I was like, I don't know what this costs, but I need one because this is an all-star in this deck. I like the fact that it's. If you can get this down early, I mean, there's just so many ways to cut it, right? You play Rakdos. Sure. You're playing Rakdos. You play Rakdos, you have a couple mana left over. If you played Rakdos, you can probably play this, immediately have everyone's life total, or third rather. The fact that it's Menace, a 4/4, and Death Touch makes it a great blocker because we haven't really talked about it, but sometimes after Rakdos is dead, you need these evasive creatures just to get in damage to cast them again, right? Especially when they're doing it this thing. This card is just like backbreaking. I've cast it every single time. Every single time I've been able to do it. I've tutored for it with Sidisi, as made mention earlier. Every single time, it's just been like, there you go, 60 life points.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, granted, it does hit you as well, just like another card that I kind of mentioned in the intro, which that does kind of suck. But I think its plus is so high. It's just so good. Yeah. And for 5, it's kind of like the example I gave. What was that card? Of course, I'm drawing a blank on it now. But we'll just use the Angrath for example. Yep. The 6 life reduction. You could cast something massive, or like the Veldukan Ori, where someone else does the damage for you. Yeah. You cast something massive. You play this for 5, even if you don't have your commander out there, you're probably going to be able to pay for your commander and be able to plop out some free stuff. Yep. And it's going to be real good.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. So this has probably been one of the more recent additions, and it just does work.
All right. So my second game-winning card is a legendary creature, has X in its CMC, and I think it's actually really, really cool. So we're talking about MAGA Traitor to Mortals. Nope, not Make America Great Again, just MAGA Traitor to Mortals. So this is X triple black, legendary creature, human wizard, 0/0. But hey, it comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it. And then when MAGA comes into play, target player loses life equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So basically, I kind of equate this to like a targeted +1/+1 counter version of Gary or Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Something with devotion. Hey, I'm putting the counters on it. And the thing I like about this, I really enjoy cards that when you put your mana investment into it, you kind of almost immediately get it back. Right. To where you could do this one of two ways. Either A, you could use the 26 life that maybe someone lost that turn for 26 counters on this, drain someone for 26, which is just filthy. But the other way you could also do it is, well, I got Rakdos. I don't really have a profitable way to get in at the moment. I maybe need to cast something to get a cast trigger, but I don't have enough mana for that. Let me just go ahead, pay the 3 black. I'm going to put 5 or 6 into this, get it out, drain someone for 6. Now I got a 6 reduction. Let me get out a couple spells that I can kind of deal with the board state. I think it gives you lots of flexibility, and I know why it's in yeast, but I actually think this is a modal card to where it could be a good hops card to where, you know what, I just need to get a little bit. I need to get a taste. So that way I could try to get a couple of my big boys on the table.
Yeah, and the reason why I put this in yeast specifically is because like I don't think I've cast this for less than X is 20 anytime I've ever cast it. Wow. I mean, just like because eventually like you run out of mana reductions through like you can only cast so many Eldrazi's, right? So at some point when you're swinging in with death touches and tramples and flyings, you're like, all right, now what? And I think this is the ideal card for that, where you can just be like, I can just kill someone. And then especially if you're playing with some of these other cards in the East where their life totals are already lower arbitrarily, it makes it even that much easier.
Is this a pretty common target for your Sidisi tutor?
Yeah, usually. Like when we get it, especially if most of the creatures I'm playing and most of the abilities I have like some sort of evasion or some sort of like brutal attacking rigmaroles. So yeah, it's easy to be like, I know I'm going to Sidisi tutor this next turn, be able to cast X for 20, have a 20/20 blocker or attacker, and also just bang someone in the face for half their life.
Fair enough. All right, Tuck, what is your next yeet?
Well, I thought that I was a little more even on these multicolor cards, but this human, A, is absurdly expensive, and B, absurdly mean. So we are talking about our old pal, Karavek the Merciless. 5-color, black and red for a 5/4 legendary creature, human shaman. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, when they cast a spell, Karavek the Merciless deals damage.
Cast a spell.
They deal damage to target creature or player equal to target. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Errated to any target equal to that spell's converted mana cost. Rots and jackals feast in his swath, but even they will not walk around with him. So this card,
were you trying to do like a Christopher?
I don't know. It's from Margara, and he's from Mirage, and I was like, I had this idea in my mind, and then I was like, that's probably not PC, so I should probably back that out. And then I just panicked. So this card is absurd for 7. Want to know when this card is even better? When it's 2 on turn 5. It just shuts the game down.
That's so nasty.
Dude, it's brutal. And with like you said, if you have your Volduck Oris of the world and you're able to do stuff on other people's turns, that's where it just comes over. I think even then, even as backbreaking as it is, this is now people see this, right? And I think some people how can I phrase this? As we've talked about before on the cast, you only get damage done. You only will take damage from this card to how greedy you want to get, right?
Sure.
Or how much you want to play the game or whatever, right? So there have been times before where not only did Karavek deal a lot of damage, he also ate a counterspell or a Path to Exile or whatever it is, right? A Scour to Nothingness or Existence or whatever. And then the real threats come out that are repeatable over and over and over again. Just a bonkers card. And I think I got this when I got this deck for maybe $1.
Oh my gosh, it's money now.
Right?
Disgusting. I actually played against a EDH deck when I used to live in Memphis that was headed by Karavek the Merciless.
Oh no!
I was like 7. That seems too expensive. That doesn't seem good. He got it out real quick, and it was real good.
Long story longer. It's really good.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about Rakdos, similar to Kaalia. I'm not saying Karavek the Merciless is draft fodder or fodder in general, but it's real expensive for what it does. And Rakdos and Kaalia make creatures playable that would otherwise be unplayable. And I guess you could say the same thing about Animar. Because when you get up, we talk about it, when you get up 7, 8, 9, 10 mana, you better damn well be winning the game or playing such a devastating card that you've won in a turn or two. Yeah. This will just piss people off and make them burn their removal spells, most likely. But the fact that, like you said, you can get it out for 2 most of the time, that's where it becomes, oh my gosh, 2 mana with that ability and it's a 5/4, sign me up left, right, and center. I'll give my left nut for that.
All day, baby. All day.
All right. My last one, and I find it hilarious that you have this card in your deck. Because I believe when I play this card, you call me a coward, A. B, you call me a scumbag. And C, you say it's an extremely greasy card. This card does not like spells with even converted mana cost. So we're talking about Void Winnower. You scumbag, you, for making me feel bad. You don't make me feel bad, but you try to make me feel bad every time I play.
All right, so real talk. I had this written down where I was gonna go with this one or a different one depending on what you did, but I want to go with this one. So yeah, this is also mine.
9 colorless creature Eldrazi mythic. Why don't you read the text and I will go ahead and do the flavor text for you.
And this is a new voice we got to write down for old pal Obnixless. Okay, Void Winnower says your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana costs. Your opponents can't block with creatures with even converted mana costs. On both of them, 0 is even.
Have you ever seen a world fall to its knees? Watch and learn. Obnixless.
It's kind of.
I was trying to go for I was trying to do like a Pedro Pascal Game of Thrones type of thing, like
kind of breathy.
It's real soft.
Yeah. Very sensual. Very sensual.
So yeah, you're a scumbag, and you scumbag. That is now your name. It's not BigTuck, it's Scumbag. How do you have this in here? Would you legitimately go off on me when I play it in decks? This would be if we did a deck tech of yours, a Brews and builds, and you had Vorinclex in there, and I was just like, "The fuck, bro?
Hey,
what the hell?
Want to know what the record is for me getting this out in
5, 4? Do you feel good about yourself when you do it?
No, I feel terrible.
I can tell from that smile. I think you do.
Well,
yeah, you absolutely do.
Well, here's the thing, is when I cast this card on turn 4, the game is over.
Yeah, that's what you like. You like winning.
There's no discussions. No, it's just done, and we move on to the next one. Look.
Scumbag.
It's so good. It's so good.
How about this? When you draw this card, say you top deck it, do you chuckle a little bit?
No, I just look at this and be like, God damn. I literally just look down and just go like, oh, God damn it. It's like, can I get this out this turn? Yeah.
Cut it from the deck. Get it out. Go sell it. $8.50.
If it was a 7, I actually have a spare one now for my Emercul deck, so God knows where that's got enough.
Oh, so you have multiple of them. Okay.
Look. Ran in multiple decks, yeah.
Look at this. Emercul monocolor needs all the help it can get, so I can respect this card being in that. This one, I just look at it and I'm like, I never tuned in for this. And if it was like a 5/4, I would cut it immediately. If it was a 5/4 for 6, I wouldn't even run it. But the fact that it has the gall to be an 11 power creature, 2 power away from tragic slip damage. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't really have much defense on this one.
You're such a bad person.
I'm the bad guy.
Oh.
Duh.
We're gonna wrap up the yeast and how to win the game, guys, and head over to the spice, and I will start this off. You only had 5, and I believe the goad says that this card is the friendliest card. Which I'm so glad you have it in this deck, because it proves that this is not a friendly card. It's a dick card. It's an asshole.
This is also like in a roundabout way your own doing, by the way, which I'll get to.
So we're talking about Emercul the Promised End. So this costs 13. Legendary creature Eldrazi. It's a mythic. It costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyards. It might as well be blank in this deck, because you're probably casting it for like 2 or 3.
Oh, at most.
Just off your commander's ability. When you cast Emercul, gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. It has flying, trample, protection from instants. An enigma, as vexing as life itself. So I like this card a lot, because it is, I think in any Rakdos deck, if you're trying to be optimized, having the colorless Eldrazi's,
all the Titans, yeah.
Yeah. And I do like it, though, because I'm seeing more and more games where people have stuff on their board and this sounds like really dumb, but they have stuff that interacts with their own things. Sack outlets, based to pay life to
tap this to do that.
There's so much going on that, yes, you can't kill someone. I know that that's not allowed when you take over their turn. You can't pay life to kill them.
You can't just necro
But you know what you can do? You could sacrifice their entire board. Yeah. You could pay all the life you want down to 1, and then sure, you get your extra turn and you have nothing to work with. So that's the thing I like about this, because your deck is going to struggle against control decks and pillow fort decks a lot.
Yes.
And Emercul is a very cool way to kind of take those players and do what you need to do with it. And you'll be able to set yourself up for success. So big fan. I'm interested why it's in spice though, and not hops. So the reason why I have this is because you gave me one of these for Christmas, like the altars. And then I took that deck apart. Oh. So I had a leftover one. And I was like, I think that card's kind of expensive in proxy or otherwise. And I already have a real copy in another deck. So I don't have any reps in this. This is why I would kind of put it in spice. And even though all these things are being said, I still there's still something in me that I've played this card before and it's not backfired, but it hasn't got me the value that I wanted. Right. I was like, I pretty much just time walk someone. They don't get to play a land. Right, but you probably paid back then 9 mana for it, unlike this deck where it might even be free.
And I think that's why it could be a yeast, it could be a hops, it could be a lot of different things in this deck, because it's like, if I can get this out, if there's some magic Christmas land, right, where I have pestilence or something and I get Rakdos out and then the turn after can cast this, there's going to be no answer for the rest of the game short of a board wipe that's going to be able to handle a 13/13 with flying, trample, and protection from instants. So that
tragic slip can't get it.
Exactly. And when you were talking about that, I didn't want to bury the lead. So yeah, I just don't have the reason why I put it in spice is because I just don't have the reps. I don't have the reps with this card, and I don't know if it's really going to be a backfire or as impactful as we hope it is.
Well, there we go. Tuck, what is your spice? You only got 4.
And this is the exact same thing with this. So I love this card. It came out and I got really excited and I just could not think of what Rakdos deck to put it in. So Chainer Nightmare Adept, I feel like could have a home in this, but I don't know because I haven't seen it. So 2 colorless, a black and a red for 3/2 legendary creature human minion. I believe that's a mythic. 77 cents for the foil. So there you go. So discard a card. You may cast a creature card from your graveyard this turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste until your next turn. So it's pretty sweaty, I would wager to guess, right? But the thing I like about this is that you did make mention that this is a go tall deck, right? And even if a creature card's in my graveyard, it's still gonna feel the sting of the Rakdos discount. So for me, this is less of and this is why it's in spice, because it's not really like a yeast, it's not really like a grain or a hop. It's kind of like a Hail Mary, right? I'm not going to play this card until it's late game, because it's just going to come down and it's going to get board wiped or get fought and killed or something like that. Then I'm out of luck. But I feel like in the late game, when I don't have much of a hand, this at least gives me something that I can do each turn on my turn to get a giant creature back that's going to immediately swing into the red zone. I have not. Yeah, I haven't, and I do have. I was going to talk about living death, reanimate, these sort of things. So I just don't have. The reason why I put this in spice is I also just don't have the reps with this. I don't think I've ever seen this in the deck.
So I do agree that it's a spice card, but mainly because, like we talked about earlier, Rakdos isn't known for drawing cards. Yeah. So I don't know if discarding cards to then get something, or are you even going to have cards to discard at that point? So that's where I don't think it really fits. Plus, the secondary ability is really only going to work for your commander. 9 times out of 10.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, 99 times out of 100. Because your deck is play from your hand. Even if you do play it for free, it's play from your hand. So I actually was cutting this, but as we were going through this episode, I noticed that you had a different card in here in your hops section that I was already adding in replacement of Chainer, and this card is just a better version of this enchantment. So it's staying in for now, but honestly, I would actually say I would actually cut Chainer for Archfiend of Despair. I actually think that's better for this deck than Chainer is. But, Archfiend of Despair is the one at the beginning of
the sack 2.
Loses life equal to the... No. Loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn, and your opponents can't gain life. I actually think that'd be way better than that. Yeah. But, hey, we don't get 4 cuts. We only get...
Well, and again, I just don't have... I feel like this card could be really good. I just don't know, right? It could be a complete stinker. It could be a game swinger. I just do not have the reps on it yet.
Well, that's going to wrap up the spice package. Now we're going to head over to the bottle capping. And as a reminder, these are going to be BigTuck and I's cuts and adds to the deck that are going to be under $5, under $50, and a no budget recommendation. We just can't talk about mana only lands. So I'm going to start this off with my under $5. And I already alluded to it. I'm cutting Aingrath, the Flame Chain. I do think it's a good card for the loss of life. But, Tuck... what's your favorite mechanic in all of Magic?
Modal? Oh, no, the Monarch?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I thought about this. I think, are you doing both of them or just one?
Just the one.
Nice.
So I'm doing the black one.
Oh, okay.
Chord of Ambition. 2 colorless black enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. You need the card draw.
Yeah.
That's something your deck does
100%.
need. And this is just... It is a little situational, but each opponent, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. If you're the Monarch, instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. So I think this does 3 different things for you. And this would be a modal card that I would actually put probably in Hops, because I think you're going to get those effects more often. Drawing a card is obviously great. Yep. You're going to have some big, tall boys. Now, granted, we talked about it. Go wide decks are going to hurt you, and there's nothing you could do about that. But introducing the Monarch mechanic, I think, shifts the vision away from your board into whoever has the Monarch.
Right.
Because now it's like, well, I want to draw a card.
Which is why it's my favorite mechanic of all time.
There you go. And then either each opponent loses 3 life or 6 life, feeds right into Rakdos, and that is massive life loss and mana reduction.
Yep.
It's going to be harder to get rid of because, yes, there is enchantment removal and planeswalker removal, but planeswalkers can also be attacked.
Yeah.
Enchantments can't be attacked. But I think more often than not, you're going to get the discard a card piece, which you've talked about. You need them to have less cards in hand.
Right.
And so I think with this, it's going to stick around longer. You're going to probably get the discard a card or discard 2 cards more often than not. But it happening during your upkeep is actually really, really good. Mm-hmm. Because what if people have been holding up removal spells, counter spells? Hey, Goad, you got 4 cards in hand. Discard half of them because I'm the Monarch.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I just saw Terminate and Murder go. Looks like, because people aren't just going to hold up interaction because of you. They still need to keep stuff to advance their board state. So I think this is going to do a lot for you. It does lower your CMC by 1. And I think it's going to stick around longer than the Aingrath one.
I saw. So are you doing both courts or just this one?
Just
okay, cool. So I like when I was researching it, I did see that both this and the Court of Ire were added in, which is you get the Monarch and then it deals 2 or 7 damage to any target, which is pretty good removal.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's real. I feel that in the cold light of day, I do kind of agree with you where I think I want Aingrath to do things more than I think I want it to do more than it does. And to your point, I feel like this Court of Ambition is going to do what it wants over and over and over again sooner.
Yep.
And how can I resist the Monarch? I can't do it. I can't do it.
There you go. All right, Tuck. What are you going to cut? Or what are you going to add for under $5?
So I am going to cut out a card which I think reads really good, but it's just not ever, especially in this deck, it's just never done it for me. So I'm going to cut Palace Siege. So it's 3 colorless, 2 black for an enchantment. As Palace Siege enters the battlefield, choose cons or dragons. Cons, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And dragons, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life.
I don't know. That's good. The dragons one.
I agree, but there's this. I've had this in this deck, and it just always underperforms for me. right? Like, and it's,
I mean, 5 is a lot.
and that's kind of the issue. That's part of the issue for me, where it's like, it's just 2 life. There's no way to make it more. There's no way to make it less. You only gain 2 life no matter what. And it's just like the return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand is fine, but I would much rather have a card like Living Death that I have in here where it comes to battlefield, right? So both modes of this card, I think, kind of do okay, but it's just like it's always just kind of underperformed for me. I've always wanted it to be a little better. So another thing I noticed in this in this deck is I run less than like 30 creatures, right? Less than 25, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I'm intentionally making the deck more fragile than it needs to be by doing so. So there's certain cards that I've really wanted that were too expensive, but now have dropped out because they rotate out of standard. And one of them that I really like is Spawn of Mayhem. So 2 colorless, 2 black for a creature demon. It has Spectacle, 1 colorless, 2 black. I may cast a spell for a Spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. It's flying, trample, 4/4. At the beginning of my upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player. Then if you have 10 or less life, put a 1/1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem.
That's slimy, man. Or should I say sweaty?
You think it's sweaty? So I like it because I like it so much because it does the thing of dealing 1 damage to each player that everyone wants, right? Especially if I'm going to be playing cards like Piranha Marsh or something. I'm going to be able to cheat this out for 3. It's a 4/4 beater that's flying and trample, so it's going to eat through drakes. It's going to eat through birds, all that sort of things. And it's just another creature on the battlefield to block with. A lot of times, like you talked about, I'm just getting hammered down by 2/2s, by 1/1s, just because I'm waiting to get the right cards in hand to be able to get out my bigger stuff. And having something that can come down, be effective, play towards the end of the game, and also swing in, to me, is way better than Palace Siege. Turn over, turn over, turn.
Yeah, so you've already played with Palace Siege, so you already know its bottoms.
For sure, yeah.
I think if you were going to... The issue I have with it is basically a quarter of the card might as well be blank. And then if you have 10 or less life, put a +1/+1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem. It's just, that's basically worthless. And so you're basically paying 4 for a 4/4 flying trample that deals the damage to each player at the beginning of your upkeep. And I don't know if that's good enough to have in the deck, considering you've played this deck enough. And Tuck, I bet you could probably count on one hand the amount of times the deck went real slow. I bet you have your life loss, you have your rigmarole going, you're able to progress your game state. Now you might not be able to plop down Void Winter on turn 4, but you're still plopping down good stuff for 4, 5, and 6.
It's hard, right? And I think, like I alluded to at the beginning of the episode, when I first built this, it was definitely much more glass cannon-y of playing these low drop creatures that were just 1/1s that were pingers, right? And to me, I think that this deck, if I can put in cards that help me take a deep breath and be like, I don't need to run out all at once in turn 5.
Sure.
Right? I don't need these low pingers, and I don't need to have all this stuff going on. I think Spawn of Mayhem for me is a reminder that this can be kind of a tempo deck. Doesn't need to be screaming, but I still have a beater that can defend me, that can dish out some damage, plop down when the Rakdos comes in, those sort of things. So I mean, because also, so the turn after this, let's say I play this turn 3 or turn 4, the next turn, trigger, play Rakdos, so I'm already at -3. I swing into someone that doesn't have any flyers. Now I'm down to -7 for my next card with just casting Rakdos on that turn.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not hot on it. It's fine. Sure. This definitely is not a sexy ad.
No. I got
Spawn of Mayhem is not showing up in a G-string and a lacy bra.
Facts. It's showing up in like a peasant's outfit where you have to spend 18 minutes just unbuttoning them, and then you realize that it hasn't watched its privates except for the river 2 weeks ago.
Oh my god. All right, for under 50, I'm actually going to cut Warstorm Surge.
Yeah, we are.
5 colorless.
Are we doing this? I think we probably are. It's so easy. Are we matched? It's got to be. It has to be.
Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. All right, here we go. Listen to the roar. Feel the thunder. The immersed storm shouts its approval with every bolt of lightning.
It's like thunder. Boo! Lightning. Boo! The way you love me is frightening. You better walk on out of this deck.
Oh my god! And obviously, I mean, the reason we're cutting it is there's just a better
let's be honest here. Like we all know what's happening.
All right, 3, 2,
Terror of the Peaks. Just complete like.
You can.
Yeah. Okay. It's just so funny where it's like. It's so funny when you just realize, like, as soon as I opened this deck up again, I saw Warstorm Surges here. It wasn't even a thought. Like, my brain didn't even fire. I was like, yep, all right. Terror of the Peaks is 3 colorless, red, creature dragon. It's a 5/4 flying. Spells your opponents cast that target Terror of the Peaks costs additional 3 life. I guess even better, because that's another reduction in this deck, right? If they want to Swords to Plowshare it. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. It's like... And I think it's even funnier that we talked earlier about the similarities between this and Kalia, because this was also a cut and add into Kalia. For kind of different reasons, right? Like, Kalia can cheat this out and so on and so forth. But it's just like... It's so funny that like... Warstorm Surge was in like piles of precons, Commander Staple, like Ranit and Prosh, All-Star and all these other decks, and then one card comes out that just completely nullifies it.
Now, granted, I will say this: you get to for anyone that is a Warstorm Surge fan, it is just 1 more mana than Terror of the Peaks, and it's an enchantment, so it is harder to get rid of. But I think having this on a body that can also hit people is just in your deck makes it
agreed
better. And I didn't run Warstorm Surge in my Kalia deck, but I could see, like, I mean, I'd be fine running Warstorm Surge probably in my Snake deck over Terror of the Peaks, just because I have green, and so 5 mana, 6 mana, it's kind of the same thing to me.
But I think to your point, and the reason why this is so much better in Kalia and in Rakdos, so Warstorm Surge in both these decks, you're paying 6 no matter what, right? Or it's 6, right?
Yeah.
You're paying 6 no matter what. But in both Kalia and Rakdos, you're either paying 0 or likely 2. Like a 3 mana reduction in a Rakdos deck is a joke. Like you get it with any of the pingers that we talked about, and that to me is like the critical difference of it.
Totally makes sense. All right, we're on to the no budget.
We're also cutting the same card.
I'll give you the option. Usually, we like to end the cuts with the person's deck it is, but since we shared the under 50, do you want to go first for the personal recommendation, or do you want to go last?
I'm going to tell you right now, it don't matter. Because you have, I think the game has warped such that, and my own brain has warped such that I think you are right on almost all of these cards.
Thank you.
So we should do another 3, 2, 1.
On what we're cutting? Okay, yeah. 3, 2,
Sepulchral,
1. Primordial.
It just doesn't have I'll go through it real quick. It's 5 colorless, black for a creature avatar. It's a 5/4 with Intimidate, which all sounds good, right? Paying this for 2, why not? When it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you may put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard on the battlefield under control. I think that this card was like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this was one of the best cards in the decks when I first built it 5 years ago. Just because it was like much more battle cruiser, much more slow. A lot of people were playing bigger decks and that sort of thing. And I think, we've talked about this card so many times throughout the course of this podcast, right? And outside of a few decks, like I still think that the Primordials have a decent, like especially the blue and black ones are good in mill decks just because you're going to have more options. But in this one, to your point, by and large, the creatures in my graveyard are going to outclass anyone else's by a country mile, like no questions.
Yeah, unless you just get lucky and you just happen to sit down at a pod with another battlecruiser deck, which the odds of that happening, I mean, think about it. I mean, even our friends that have decks that live in the red zone, like think of Duff. He has lots of decks that live in the red zone, and sure, if he's playing his dragons deck or dinos, you could get some juicy targets. But if he's playing knights or goblins, it's like cool. I get a 3/3.
And what's the difference? And what's the difference between, like, in this card there's other cards where you play it down and get to cast one creature from a graveyard, right? At significantly less. So to your point, though, like especially in our play groups and the play groups we've been seeing, it's a blank card.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on it, obviously, when this was printed way long time ago, 5/4 for 7 with all these abilities was great. I think for this card to be playable now, it probably needs to be a 7/7 for 7 with those abilities, because there is a major chance that you whiff
100%.
on his whole ETB effect. So, all right. Do you want to talk about your card? Or do you want me to talk about mine? Because mine, you and I have talked about before, and you've even admitted that you need to get a copy.
I own a copy of mine that I've been looking for a home for, so why don't you go ahead?
All right. It's my boy. I like to just put him in decks just to have an anti-mill strategy. But in your deck, I think this is amazing. And you still don't own a copy. I don't know why. Kozilek.
Which I was going to say, is it Kaz or Ula?
Yeah, well, you have one Ula in here.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a 10-drop legendary creature Eldrazi mythic. It's a 12/12. When you cast it, draw 4. That fixes a Rakdos problem of needing card draw. Annihilator 4. Defending player sacks 4 permanents. Just gross. Yeah. And then whenever it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, you just shuffle your entire graveyard back into your library. Like, people are going to kill this, and people are going to kill your big things. And so when they kill this, you may have 3, 4, 5 other big things in your graveyard. Oop, let's just do some Monster Mash, shuffle it up, and we'll go at it again.
Attaboy. It is all Monster Mash. Yeah, and let's be honest here. Like, if I had unlimited budget, which, like, now that I'm not buying sealed product every day or every month, I sort of do. And I think, like, if we're gonna be completely honest, if you look at all the decks I own and the ones I play, Kozilek, the OG printings of Kozilek and Ulamog fit this deck like a T. Right? Yep. They're backbreaking. They win. Can you, like, it's the same thing of casting Void Winter, right? Like, can you imagine casting this turn 4 or 5 or 6?
People will immediately become the arch enemy if they haven't already scooped.
And like, even then, like, I think the best part about this card, is it refills your hand, right? So, okay, cast this card for free. I have a 25% chance of drawing another Eldrazi card that I can also cast for free, or tutoring for another one, right? I think, to your point, this is a slam dunk. Ulamog's a slam dunk in here, and this is like, it's almost to the point where it's like they're not getting any cheaper. I should have gotten 4 copies when they're $30, and here we are.
Yeah, but that would have been crazy if I would have been like, "Hey, Tuck, you need to buy 4 copies of Kozilek for $30." You'd have been like, "You're out of your mind, combo. I'm gonna wait." And now the cheapest copy you can get $60.
Well, and here's interesting too. Ulamog used to be the expensive one, and Kozilek was the cheaper, and Ulamog now is cheaper by $50.
Whoa, Ulamog's only $10?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's $50, but Kozilek. So I mean,
it's like $15.
Yeah, it's less. It's cheaper than $10. I was looking at the price of Ulamog, which is $50.
So the one thing I would like to point out before we move on, you're gonna have to zoom in. Kozilek's head. What's going on there?
I think so. Okay, this is what I think here. Ulamog's kind of got like the manticles, right? And Kozilek is like he's like Pyramid Head from the Silent Hill series. Like, his head is just that little bit, and then he knows his head is vulnerable, so he's built up this big neck carapace to protect it.
Interesting.
And I got,
because Eldrazi's need protection, right? Because they're so fragile.
And I got an even deeper cut from you. If you ever seen the movie Highlander, which I'm sure you haven't.
I vaguely remember that.
There's like a gazillion sequels, and later there was some guy, a Highlander, who had the genius idea of being like, well, the only way I can die is someone can hack my head off. So he just built his own steel impenetrable armor plate that he put around his head, and no one could beat him. So that's what Kozilek is doing.
It's pretty great. All right, Tuck. What are you going to add?
So we're talking about like value, right? So Sepulchral Primordial cost 7, can potentially do nothing, right? And I have one of these lying around, and I've been trying to figure out where to put it, and it's a slam dunk in here. So can't believe I didn't have it in here earlier. Kind of a classic commander card, but Shouldred Whispering one is just a better Sepulchral Primordial by a country mile. So she's a legendary creature, Praetor, 6/6 Swamp Walk, which honestly I would say is even better than Intimidate or whatever Sepulchral has, because there's always someone playing black. 6/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. So again, it's just like there. To me, there's no comparison. Sepulchral Primordial comes down, and there's a 75% chance he does nothing. Right?
No, I mean, this sounds bad because technically your math is right. I would almost say there's like an 80 or 90% chance he does nothing. Yeah. Not that he doesn't grab anything. It's like, I got
I was literally just gonna say what else. I'm not even joking. Whereas, like, again, especially in this deck, the point that you sold me on the Sepulchral Primordial being bad is like if you're playing this in a deck and hoping to win, then you don't care about your own graveyard, right? Yeah. Whereas unless, especially in this non-battle cruiser groups that we've been playing in, there is very little chance that anyone has a better creature card in their graveyard than me. And at this point, when I'm playing her, I have all of them. And beyond that, even playing her, I think we've all had this experience where someone plays a Shieldred early in the game, they get lucky, turn 5, and you're just like, okay, now what? Like, how do we get back from this? Okay, I can kill it, but then he probably just has a way to get it back, and then that doesn't even negate what future issues that are coming up. So, I think I didn't put it in here because it's expensive, but now that I have a spare for whatever reason, I can't remember why. Just seems like a straight upgrade to Sepulchral.
Yeah, that completely makes sense, man. I mean, I love Shieldred just to begin.
It's so good.
So, we'll just have to see how filthy this deck is. And I'm telling you, man, you need to quit waiting. You're breaking down all these decks, grab $80 worth of cards, head to level 1, and trade them in for a damn Cosmic.
Yeah, I need one so bad. I got...
And then once you have the one, play test it into your other decks, because it's not something to expect a friend and colleague to spend $70 per deck for one card.
Right. Yeah.
But hey, guys, we're at the end of this bloodbath, and as promised, here's some details about our giveaway from our sponsor, Level 1. So we've been a little wishy-washy just because emails apparently are not the preferred method for Level 1 on getting things. So
hey, look, they need to get on this email train. It's a great place. So
it was a little delayed, and it also didn't help that I didn't email them about this month's giveaway until like the day we recorded the first February episode. So here is what you guys are getting. All of these will be alternate art cards, Narset of the Ancient Way, the Royal Scions, Ashiok Nightmare Muse, Luca Coppercoat Outcast, and you're even going to get a Nissa of Shadowed Bow.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah, you're getting a whole lot of sweet Planeswalkers, a whole lot of sweet alternate arts, and I can't wait to see what filthy decks you guys build with it. But you got to figure out how to enter into that contest, and here's how you can do that. You get an entry for every interaction you do with us on social media. You get entries for being part of our patron community. You also get entries for just following us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcast platform, all the different things. We will announce the winner on MTG Action 4 News March 2nd and social media soon after. Yes, these giveaways will happen every single month. It could be a sweet collection of cards like this, a sweet deck. Maybe it's a sealed product, even though me and Tuck have sworn off sealed. But apparently I'm breaking the rules on secret layers. It just depends on what level
you beautiful fool.
But we would like 5-star reviews. We do want you to follow us. We want feedback because honestly, we can never get better unless you tell us how we can be better. And if you want to find out more ways to enter into the contest and how to get a hold of us, here's how you could do that. You can reach me at Mr. Comment number 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. BigTuck, where can they reach your demonic self?
Well, I think now things seem to be cooling off, so I might actually reinstall Twitter on my phone. So you can find me there at BigTuck tweeting on the Twitterverse.
You can also follow our main account at CMD Tower on Twitter as well. We also do have a website, cmdtower.com, where we will have this episode's article up that BigTuck puts a lot of time into for you guys. It'll have a deck list. It'll have a funny little GIF. It's all good things that BigTuck puts together for you. You can also basically find us anywhere on the interwebs by simply typing in
he had to look it up.
Conduit of Ruin, Mirror Battlesphere, Desolation Twin, Tower, Squee McGee. If people want to find and get a hold of your Manolith commentary, how would they do that?
First, my demonic self. I think BigTuck, we should probably rename our band that, and also cover a My Chemical Romance song, wear all sorts of black garb and makeup. I think
my demonic self, that is good.
Yep, not bad. And then, you know where to get me, Dear Squee, at cmdtower.com. I see all you degenerates messaging me in this Discord thing. I don't know what that is. Email, folks. Email.
He does do a whole lot of audio editing for obviously our channel, but can also do your projects as well. He does have also a full studio if you ever are in the Kansas City metro area. Just remember, mask required. Shaved armpits, optional.
Is that from experience, getting to the beach, getting ready for it?
No, I trim under there. I don't shave it.
Right.
But it's gross, man. My fiance is into like the chest hair thing, and I usually like to be like clean and waxed, and so.
Oh yeah, dude.
I don't like it. Gross.
She likes a real man.
The sacrifices.
She's just like me. She's just like me, Mr. Combo. She likes a real man in the sheets. I want that rug burn.
Like Mr. Bubs.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you guys want to support our sponsor with the orders, let's be honest, everyone's already placing stuff, whether it's single or sealed. Just do it with Level 1, level1gameshop.com. When you place an order in the order notes, just type in CMD Tower so they know that you came from The Collective. They're awesome people down there. Mia's the one that I work with each month for your monthly giveaways. Definitely giving them business helps keep our gift giving alive. If you would actually like to put dollars in our pockets and help us out directly financially, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMDTower. Like our good old buddy, the Tree Folk Lord, you get shout outs for just $1 a month, plus access into that Discord that Squee will apparently ignore you on. And then also get entered in for deck therapy, which we've now been going on strong for 2-3 months now. And it's been a new series that people have enjoyed on MTG Action 4 News. But for $5 or $15 or $25 a month, you also get tons of swag. Whenever we come out with new swag, you automatically get it. It's not like you got to pay extra or cancel, re-enter. We like to support our community as best we can, but also we use that money to help upgrade our equipment. Like you can hear my awesome microphone I'm using right now. Tuck's next in line. Got to get him something better than whatever makeshift setup he has.
You can still,
especially now that he'll be
hear me.
That was so creepy. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, you do get additional entries into the monthly giveaways. But if you can't help us out financially monthly, but you would still like to get some of that swag, head over to our store, cmdtower.com/merch, and order stuff, please. My family would appreciate it. And of course, Pink Royal, thanks for the music at the beginning and the end, and T-Coats. Tyler is our awesome video editor. Go check him out on Twitter at t.coats. Hit him up for any kind of projects you might need some video editing on. Trust me, he is way better than Mr. Combo number 5's PowerPoint presentation that you used to have to suffer through. So, BigTuck, Rakdos, Lord of the Lodge Boys. How do you feel? Do you think we talked about some good cards? Do you think we have helped the strategy, or did we just make this thing filthier than it already was?
You know, it's weird where it's like a lot of the decks I feel like a lot of the decks we've kind of been talking about recently have needed like some serious like deck therapy, right? Like they need some work. And I feel like the last two that we talked about with Kalia and Rakdos, like they're still solid decks, right? But I think there's just a few pieces here and there that we can trim out, like a little fat we can trim out, you know, a little bit of leanness we can add into them. And I think especially I haven't said this, we haven't talked about this a whole ton, but like having these decks that I've had around for so long and just looking through the list objectively as opposed to passionately when you build something, I think has really been helpful, right? I love the additions that we've talked about. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in here. And I think that I think if we can, I already like playing this deck, so if I can smooth it out even a little bit more, then it's going to be even more fun to play.
No, that completely makes sense. And, it's interesting to say, hear you when you kind of talk about like, it used to come out blazing screaming. I've done some little adjustments because, that's just not the kind of play style I wanted, which I always find interesting with you because you speak as if you don't want to play good decks or competitively and you don't like to win games, yet your actions contradict those words. And I definitely feel that is the case today when we talk about, Shieldred. But I will say this, your recommendations for Terror of the Peaks is fine, but it's not game breaking. Yep. Spawn of Mayhem, I already said it. I think that's just not even
another spice card.
Yeah. But I like the direction you've done with the deck. I'd love to see you maybe a couple years from now after you get to play with these new changes, maybe do what I kind of talked about in the beginning, where even with Kalia, we said, hey, you don't have to have them all. Just build an angel deck with Kalia or build just dragons or just demons. I'd love to see you pick a kind of oddball theme for this that isn't Eldrazi's. Maybe it is Demon Tribal. Yeah. Maybe it's, hey, the way I'm going to win is off of that, Liliana's Pact.
Well, and actually, what's interesting is, like, I just tore apart my other Rakdos deck, right? That was all demons and devils.
Oh, God, that terrible.
Oh, it's terrible. One. But, like, I think to your point, being able to play it in a deck like this that's much more streamlined, has a little bit more of a budget, will definitely make that deck more fun to play, more smooth, and that sort of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of directions you could go. Hell, you could even go like this weird god tribal with Rakdos, which would be kind of fun.
Now you've gone too far, Mr. Jokester.
But bye-bye.